Hi, this is Bruce Rawles. I'm speaking again with Susan Dugan. And as always, we're talking about our favorite subject, A Course in Miracles. And today, Susan suggested the light in the dream, which is in chapter 18, section 3, and to kick off an exploration in light and darkness themes in her wonderful classes. Um, so thank you, Susan, for being here and also for suggesting the topic. I think this is a great one, and certainly light is a metaphor for awakening and undoing the belief in separation and so many of the wonderful things. And of course, is a very frequent and persistent theme, and definitely a very worthy topic. So thank you.
Yeah, oh, you're welcome. And I think we're recording this at least right before the solar eclipse on which is Monday and April 8th. And so yeah, just as an image and a metaphor, I think that whole, um, it just occurred to me to think about light and darkness in terms of the course. Um, and also, the reason that I chose this was just because I love the idea of the journey of coming, really, eh, a journey from darkness to light,
Mhm.
and that is not linear. And the ideas of the sort of dark nights of the soul that we seem to go through on the spiritual journey, and the way that it really sprang from just noticing myself um, even more deeply how I can be very right-minded and having real shifts in a problematic special relationship that seems problematic for Susan, and have a real shift to seeing our shared interest of trying to find our way home, and really experiencing uh, uh, something that is not of this world, that is the same in us, that allows for complete, joining and compassion for the other person. And then, how 5 minutes later or a day later or whatever, I can suddenly just be in complete darkness in the sense of being enraged or being, just filled with worry and dread and fear and anger and worried about the future or the past, and equating, a lot of making false connections that my emotions are as a result of the behavior of someone else. And just how incredibly dark that feels when you're in it. And this section in particular talks a lot directly about that. And so, it talks about how we are tempted to rush to darkness because this fear of ours of that we really did, eclipse God, that we extinguished the light of God, is so much more pervasive and unconscious than we're aware of. And so this really has to be a journey, because we don't even really know it's there until we find ourselves acting it out
Mhm.
and in it, and being a raving lunatic of some kind. I mean, we may not be raving at someone else who's there at the moment, but we certainly are going through those emotional turmoil within. And so or that sense of lack that we're going through, or whatever it is, or the fear of something going wrong in our own body or someone else's body, or however it's presenting. So I think it's really very comforting to know that we have a loving presence, a light in the dream, that we're not depending on our own light, that this is, we are dreaming. Even though we are part of that light, we are dreaming that we plunged ourselves into darkness as a result of separating from love, God, our one capital S self. And so that, because of that experience, because that experience seems very real to us and we do seem lost in it, we need to connect with, to reach out to a light that is outside the dream. And that light is in the course is represented by Jesus, Holy Spirit, but those are just used metaphorically as symbols of that loving lightness in our mind that, knows that we're all eternally part of this shared innocence that is God, that God is and has never, we have never left and has been completely unaffected by our dreams of darkness. So this section, uh, just beautifully talks about that. So yeah, that's why I chose it.
Very good, very good. I couldn't help but notice the connection with the lunacy of the lunatics and the moon's participation in obscuring the light of the sun, metaphorically. And
Right,
so yeah,
right. It's almost mythological in our
yeah, yeah.
in within the dream, absolutely. And
Hmm.
it's masculine, feminine, and yin and yang, and all of that is, yeah, a very, very much part of our mythology, and of course, designed to keep us riveted on a dream of duality, right?
Hmm.
And of one or the other, and that it is possible to do real damage to each other, and bodies do real, whether they're celestial bodies seeming celestial bodies, or they are, they seem to be in human form or in the animal kingdom. We deliver quite a bit of damage on each other, and that's
Hmm.
that's why we came,
Yep.
to prove that damage is possible. Yeah.
It happens in root systems and underneath the surface of the Amazon forest, as well
Yep.
as
Yes,
galaxies
that's
ripping
right.
themselves apart. You know,
Yeah,
just on every level, there's the material world of space and time is really one of conflict, attack, and polarization and dualistic thinking, isn't it? I mean, how could it be
absolutely.
anything but that when it was made from that dualistic thought system? I was
Yep.
also thinking about kind of the eclipse idea kind of reminded me of years ago. When I was dabbling with esoteric astrology, there was a shamanic astrologer named Daniel Giamario who was commenting on the fact that the Earth and the sun and the Earth relative to people on the Earth, sun, sun and the moon to people on the Earth had the same apparent size in the sky, so that eclipses were possible, and total eclipses. And I was thinking, well, the equality of the size is kind of a metaphor for the idea that, well, maybe we're in a position to notice that we're really all the same, and that when we block out any one part of our self, we're really blocking out the totality of creation. So anyway, just another metaphor kind of thing.
Mhm.
But
Yep.
um, and then I penned a few thoughts about the eclipse that I could read real quickly. From the Holy Spirit's perspective, a perfect, infinite, luminous, transparent circle that exactly overlaps with another identical one, as in the Forgotten Song and in A Course in Miracles in chapter 21, extends the all-inclusive light as contrasted with ego's finite circles, such as planetary orbs that block the light, as those bodies compete and overlap to exclude light, as in every astronomical eclipse. And then there's paragraph 8 in the chapter 21, section 1 of the Forgotten Song really talks about that. And it's beyond the body, beyond the sun and stars, past everything you see, and yet somehow familiar is an arc of golden light that stretches as you look into a great and shining circle. And all the circle fills with light before your eyes. The edges of the circle disappear, and what is in it is no longer contained at all. The light expands and covers everything, extending to infinity, forever shining and with no break or limit anywhere. Within it, everything is joined in perfect continuity. Nor is it possible to imagine that anything could be outside, for there is nowhere that this light is not. And it's
Mm.
just a lovely description of the non-dual identity that we all share and our ultimate reality that we've hidden from us by using the ego to eclipse that awareness, I suppose one could say.
Hmm.
Yeah.
By closing our eyes. It's all
Yeah, yeah.
it's a
It
gripping
doesn't take
metaphor.
much to hide the light.
No, yeah, it doesn't.
Even though the light, is still there. Recently, I flew back and forth to Georgia to be with some relatives, and each of the flights pulling up through the ground layer of clouds. You realize the sun's always there. You know,
Right.
but on the ground, we can seem to experience, a relative darkness and obscuration of the light. But when
Yeah,
we,
no,
pull up metaphorically above the clouds, and above the battleground, as the Course would say, we realize, well, the light's been there all the time, just waiting patiently for our return. Yeah,
right. Of
yeah,
course, calls it the clouds of guilt.
yeah,
So
exactly,
yeah, yeah,
exactly. Yeah,
yeah. So, well, I was thinking that the first four paragraphs of this would be great for us to read.
yeah,
So
yeah.
you can start if you want.
Okay, sure. So this is chapter 18 in the text of A Course in Miracles, section 3, and this is the first paragraph of Light in the Dream. You who have spent your life in bringing truth to illusion, reality to fantasy, have walked the way of dreams, for you have gone from waking to sleeping and on to a yet deeper sleep. Each dream has led to other dreams, and every fantasy that seemed to bring a light into the darkness, but made the darkness deeper. Your goal was darkness, in which no ray of light could enter. You sought, and you sought a blackness so complete that you could hide from truth forever in complete insanity. What you forgot was simply that God cannot destroy himself. The light is in you. Darkness can cover it, but cannot put it out. Well, there's the clouds of guilt. So metaphorically, the
Yeah, that's what we were
darkness.
talking about. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
exactly.
And sure, we can pull the wool over our own eyes and hover and shiver on the ground underneath the clouds we made up in our mind, but the sun will continue to shine regardless of how we try to eclipse it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I love that he talks about your goal was darkness. He is, as always, really addressing us as decision-making minds, not as
Mm-hmm.
personal selves.
Mm-hmm.
But we made a decision that we wanted to experience, have this experiment in individuality. We wanted to see what it was like to be other than God, other
Mm-hmm.
than the light. And so the goal was to blot out the awareness of light, of love, of our undifferentiated loving union, eternally loving union. And so so our goal was darkness in which no ray of light could enter, and then repress the whole thing that we made it up, and plunge ourselves into this dream. But of course it couldn't, the light really can't be, was not extinguished. And even here it is, we're not in complete darkness. There
Mm-hmm.
is that light still shining
Mm-hmm.
in every decision making mind. And you know it's really the initiation of the spiritual journey is the realization, at least, that the darkness, there has to be something other than the darkness. And that's the beginning of it, from the Course's perspective. That is Bill and Helen in conversation. Bill saying to Helen, there has to be another way of us, meaning of us relating to each other than this constant conflict and um, tug of war that we're always in, and all of the divisiveness that we get into in our one-on-one relationships and in our more collective relationships as well. So um, you know this is a journey. By having at least that recognition, we have we have invited the light to lead us out of the darkness.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a continuing, of course, we're coming to that moment again and again and again. But part of this journey of through learning a new kind of forgiveness is the recognition that no one and nothing outside myself can make me, you know, hate myself, or can take my peace away. And that if I'm feeling anything but love and peace, then I am choosing it. I am
Mm-hmm.
choosing the darkness. And that really is the process of accepting, coming to accept that, and see it, look at it, is what begins to make us realize that we also have the power to choose the light, to resign as our own teacher and our own, begin to question the cause of why we're really upset, and to admit that we don't know, and that, but we're willing to learn. We're willing to heal, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Yeah. That willingness to learn and to consider the idea of undoing what we made or thought we made
right,
is
right,
is a reversal of the thought process that led us into the darkness. And I was thinking that first part of the paragraph, it says you know we've tried to bring truth to illusion, reality to fantasy, and walking the way of dreams, and going from waking to sleeping and on to a yet deeper sleep. I was thinking, well, that was what we thought we would experiment with as silly, seemingly separate selves, and discovered that darkness wasn't all it was cracked up to be. And I think that's why we still have this nostalgia, like lesson 182 would suggest, for the home that we never left,
right, right,
where there's a peace and a light and a comfort and a sanity, a gentleness, and a calm that we think we have forsaken, but we really couldn't. But
right,
every time we try to drag the light into the darkness, darkness doesn't belong in or light doesn't belong in darkness, and everything won't fit into nothing. So
right,
yeah,
right.
so it's not going to work. And then at some point we'd realize that, well, the only way it's going to work is for us to go back to the light, and yeah, and
Yes.
that's got to be our own decision, each one of us.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
So, all right, I'm going to read paragraph 2. Um, As the light comes nearer, you will rush to darkness, shrinking from the truth, sometimes retreating to the lesser forms of fear and sometimes to stark terror. But you will advance because your goal is the advance from fear to truth. The goal is inevitable.
Mhm.
The goal you, decision making mind, accepted is the goal of knowledge, for which you signified your willingness, your little willingness. There has to be another way, and I would like to learn it. Fear seems to live in darkness, and when you are afraid, you have stepped back. And really, we've stepped back as we've abdicated our power as a decision-making mind, right?
Mhm.
We've claimed that we're powerless, that we're helpless. Let us then join quickly in an instant of light, and it will be enough to remind you that your goal is light. And so at that point, when we, recognize that fear, the darkness, the fear, the anger, the dread, the anxiety, the longing, the neediness, but however it's presenting, that really is my invitation again to that there has to be another way, that I want to join with the part of my mind that knows the light, that sees sees the truth, that holds the peace, that holds our shared innocence. And so just reminding myself of that, that I must be wrong, and um, I'd like to experience peace instead of this, right?
Yeah.
So, um, yeah, I think this is beautiful, and it really talks about as the light comes nearer, you will rush to darkness. I mean, it's very reassuring. It's we go back and forth. We have
Mhm.
these times of experiences of a piece out of this world when we have stepped back and the ego gotten the ego out of the way, and we're willing um, to allow the truth you know, to just unimpeded express itself through us in our relationships, that we, to really see the other person as my brother or sister, trying to find their way home just like me. But then very, very often we rush to darkness very soon after that. Because we're so afraid really of the light. It goes much deeper, as we were saying at the beginning of this, that than we know. And so we shouldn't be too hard on ourselves when that happens, because it's inevitable. That's inevitable too, as long as we're still on a journey. We haven't gotten to the light completely. We still have an unconscious allegiance to the darkness. And
Mhm.
so that's going to take a while. We're not ready to wake up yet. And so, only little bits of light are possible at this point, and that's okay.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. glimmer or two at a time,
Yeah,
but that's enough to motivate us
is
to see the difference between what we made and what we inherited. Yeah,
right. And
yeah,
he makes the point, I think it's in the next paragraph, that where he talks about going toward light, still hating it. He's,
yeah.
is really that we're conflicted about this. Our mind is split.
Mhm.
And so, we really, we do have a very divided allegiance as far as this is concerned, and we're very afraid of healing. And so, we can't go any faster than our fear will allow, and we're not asked to,
Right.
you know.
Yeah. We don't have to shout down the ego or rush it, because when we're ready, we'll want to voluntarily, without any kind of coercion or you know being
Right,
being pushed into the light. It's like it's not going to happen, because
right.
it's got to be of our own free will and accord. And I was also thinking about that the the split mind you were talking about, and how part of us knows what the truth is on some deep level that we're probably not aware of consciously much of the time at all, but yet, because that is our origin and our heritage and our destiny, that's something that we're drawn inexorably to. And the 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 nothing part of our mind that we made up resists that tremendously, because that's its game over, uh, impending game over indicator. And
Hmm.
so you know we we're kicking in, throwing out every anchor we can, and digging in our heels, and saying, hell no, I won't go. Really, heaven no, I won't go. um,
Right,
to
right.
that call. And yet, um, as the course says, that it may be, the ego's propaganda may be foolproof, but it's not God proof, because on some profoundly, seemingly hidden level, we know that that's what we really want. And that's the only thing that really is going to make us happy. But the ego, being made of fear, resorts to trying to manipulate our mind through fear, our decision-making mind. And like, I like how you point out that we can easily and helpfully replace every instance, just about it, in every instance of the course, with where the word you appears, with decision-making mind. That's really, really helpful.
Yeah.
Um, and because it's really that part of our mind that is constantly choosing between those two thought systems. And then in that second paragraph, it also says the goal you accepted. There's a clue that we already accepted this.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
When we ask for the better way. Yeah.
Yeah, we just haven't fully accepted it yet, but in truth, we've totally accepted it, but we're dreaming that we are still resisting it. That's kind of how I like to think of it, is
Right.
I just
Right.
need to heal my dream by forgiving myself for thinking that I
Yeah.
pulled off this separation. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And the journey is not linear. And so
Right, right.
to find ourselves, the in my experience, the experience of being, having those experiences of being very bright-minded and seeing really our truly shared interest of finding our way home. And, when I'm in that, when I'm out of the dream, I guess, in those times when I'm joined with that awareness,
Hmm.
then nothing is wrong. No one's excluded. There is no problem.
Right.
But then the jolt of being back in an ego meltdown is, it often feels much more intense than it used to, because I'm allowing myself to really look at it and feel
Mhm.
it. And so, but to remind yourself, if that seems horrifying, that this is not linear. This is what needs to be released. And so, it's inevitable that, we would rush back to darkness. This is, and there's no need to, the end is sure, and there's no need to think that you have, abandoned your purpose, or that that somehow you're doing something wrong. It really is part of the process. He tells us right here, it's part of the process. He tells us throughout the course that, that our fear is much greater than we're aware of, that we don't want to wake up. And so, when we would come across that, we shouldn't be too shocked about it or
Right.
too
Yeah.
worried about it.
Yeah. To not
And
get
so,
blindsided. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. As
very
you're
good.
sharing that again, that idea of the split mind, it just occurred to me that I think in psychotherapy, a lot of times when you have a psychotic break or a schizophrenic situation, it seems like a lot of times the therapist will attempt to have begin a dialogue between the orphaned, isolated personalities, and and I think the course uses something similar in the sense that as long as the ego mind can seem to be separate and isolated and working without any kind of awareness of the Holy Spirit, which is really outside its vocabulary, um, their decision-making mind, if we keep going back and forth, but never wanting to look at them together side by side, that desire to keep separate is at the root of the belief that we pulled off the separation. And so the willingness to kind of look at the contrast or the comparison side
Hmm.
by side of the two thought systems is so helpful, because that cognitive dissonance, which is, a fancy term that just says, putting the two opposing ideas side by side, and the ego doesn't really have any visibility of the Holy Spirit, but the Holy Spirit, it would seem, can look into the nothingness of the ego's thought system, see that there's nothing there, and not be upset or flustered by the void or the meaninglessness or the emptiness of the ego's dream, and see that there's nothing that is threatening to that. But we have to look at how we have made up this whole thought system of sin, guilt, and fear that we call ego, and contrast it side by side with the peace that is implicit in the Holy Spirit's thought system. And when they're right next to each other, then the choice is obvious. And then, but we keep them separate so that we don't make that choice, and we go back and forth so that we never bring them together at the same time.
Well, the experience
Yeah.
brings them together
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
because
Exactly.
we really do feel that contrast, and
Right. Right.
that,
Yeah.
that's what's alarming usually for
Yeah,
people.
exactly. And
Yeah,
that's why the
yeah,
course really makes so much emphasis on just
practice.
looking, and
Yeah,
looking is done with the light. So now we're back to the light theme again, huh?
right. But
Yeah.
looking at the darkness, and we're not shut,
Yes.
which means looking at how angry I am, looking at
Right. Right.
really the experience of it. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
defended I am
Yep.
to
We have
have
to,
things my way, whatever, however it's occurring. Yeah,
right, looking at the craziness in
yeah,
its full
crazy.
technicolor
And we're the same in
absurdity.
that too, and
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
seeing
Yeah.
that we're all the same in that.
Right.
It's just, what isn't love is murder, as the course
Yeah.
says. So,
hmm
yep.
hmm Should I read the third paragraph?
Yeah, I love
Oh,
the third paragraph.
okay. Truth has rushed to meet you since you called upon it. If you knew who walks beside you on the way that you have chosen, fear would be impossible. You do not know because the journey into darkness has been long and cruel, and you have gone deep into it. A little flicker of your eyelids, closed so long, has not been sufficient to give you confidence in yourself, so long despised. You go toward love still hating it, and terribly afraid of its judgment upon you. And you do not realize that you are not afraid of love, but only what you have made of it. You are advancing to love's meaning and away from all illusions in which you have surrounded it. When you retreat to the illusion, your fear increases, for there is little doubt that what you think it means is fearful. Yet what is that to us who travel surely and very swiftly away from fear? Wow. Yeah. So Holy Spirit's confidence in that last line is just reminding us, it's like
Hmm.
we got this covered because we're traveling surely and very swiftly away from a dream, a nightmare of duality that has never served us. And now we're beginning to look open-eyed, let the light in, and see that the darkness hasn't served us, and how batshit crazy the whole thought
Crazy.
system is,
Yeah.
and how,
Yeah.
how absurd and ultimately silly and forgivable. I keep coming back to our beloved teacher Ken Wapnick's phrase where he describes the ego as not evil, sinful, or wicked. It's just silly and then
Right.
forgivable. It's just
Yep.
a it's
Yep.
just an enormous misunderstanding. I another phrase that I find myself drawing on more and more is, Son of God, you have not sinned, but you have been much mistaken.
Yes.
And we don't
Yeah.
we don't really understand the scope and the magnitude of that one error, it says. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
But it's an error.
And
It's therefore correctable and forgivable.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I love in this, you go toward love, still hating it. Again,
Mm,
that it just acknowledges that you don't,
yeah, yeah,
we're
yeah.
ambivalent. We don't, and we're terrified of
Right.
where we're, the direction we're going,
Yeah.
of losing this personal self, this
Hmm.
this 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 badness, you know. Um, and
Yeah.
and
Right.
we don't realize that it's that we're afraid of love because we think that love is the enemy. We've made, that love is now angry with us and we don't want to go anywhere near it. And then I
Hmm.
also love when you retreat to the illusion, your fear increases, for there is little doubt that what you think it means is fearful. I mean, we think that what it means is that we're damned forever, and so
Hmm.
when I was saying that earlier, when I find myself just having like a complete crazy meltdown following times of right-mindedness, um, that that it's terrifying at first because it is that we go right back into thinking I'm lost forever in this,
Hmm.
and that's the story that we've told ourselves, and yet because we've been at this a while and we really are practicing, we can there's a part of us that can't completely dissociate the answer, which is no, that's not what's real, that's not true though, and that didn't happen. And that you're still supported. And remember, this is part of the journey that just as he's telling us. Don't be surprised when this happens. This is going to happen because this is your mind is split.
Hmm.
So and it will get more intense. You will have your fear will increase as you go along as you get closer to the light. You will rush to darkness. He's all over the place. That's very reassuring because that's the experience. And so when it happens, we can just say, okay, this is all right. I can't judge my progress in this course. It may be actually, reflecting that I'm spending more time in my right mind and that is arousing more fear, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
As you're sharing that, when you talk about meltdown, it kind of flashed in my mind, and I like this quote enough to put it in my second book, about the episode when Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz finally confronts the Wicked Witch and throws the bucket of water on her, since she felt threatened, and discovers that the witch begins to melt, and the witch says something like, "You wretched thing, you've destroyed my beautiful wickedness."
Yeah.
And that's kind of like, the ego doesn't sit still for being found out to be this wretched nothing, but it's not, again, it's not the evil, sinful, wicked thing that we made it out to be and we were terrified of. But when we look at it with the light the Holy Spirit provides, we see that it was really nothing. And just like, well, and then it melts. But we have to be willing to throw the light or throw the bucket of water, in this case, a different metaphor, but I think similar idea, on this thing that we made, that we have such self-hatred for, the witch being a symbol of, our wretchedness that we admire and adore, really. and, and
Right.
and and
Right.
yet and yet
Yeah.
it's nothing. It's really just a mythological misunderstanding that have we've given tremendous depth and breadth to, but it's really nothing there. Yeah.
Right. I mean, we're very invested too in our antagonists in our dream,
Hmm.
and keeping that going because otherwise, why have I been unhappy? Why have I been, unable to do this and that? Why have I been, I mean, all the stories that we've told ourselves kind of collapse when we're seeing, that's why we're so afraid of seeing our sameness, that
Hmm.
that we're doing the same thing,
Yeah.
we want to say, no, what you're doing is much worse than this, I'm
Right.
just an innocent victim.
Hmm.
And so, we make the stories very complex and we replay them over and over. And when we have those times where we're outside the dream and beyond the stories, it's really threatening to the personal self. It's like, how do I cope with that as Susan, as Bruce? We don't know. And that's where the rush to darkness comes from. It's like, oh, well, that's unacceptable. I gotta stick with the story, right? So
Defend what we made, even if we don't like it.
yeah, right. Because I've gone, I've been full in on this, and
Hmm.
like I've got to keep. It's too late now, right? So
The hell I know is better than the hell I
yeah.
don't
I mean,
know.
the
Yeah.
what the script involved taking this to the grave, right?
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay. Um, Paragraph 4. And is that me?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. You who hold your brother's hand, who choose to hold your brother's hand, so the decision-making mind, also hold mine. For when you joined each other, you were not alone. Do you really believe that I would leave you in the darkness that you agreed to leave with me? In your relationship, is this world's light, is where we will find the light of heaven within, right? That's the
Hmm.
Course's way. And fear must disappear before you now. Be tempted not to snatch away the gift of faith you offer to your brother. So, don't feel hopeless about this, right?
Hmm.
Um, you will succeed only in frightening yourself. The gift is given forever. The gift of shared innocence is given forever, for God Himself received it. You cannot take it back. You have accepted God, past tense. The holiness of your relationship is established in heaven, is forever established in heaven. You do not understand what you accepted, but remember that your understanding is not necessary. It's also impossible, right?
Hmm.
All that was necessary was merely the wish to understand. That wish was the desire to be holy, to be whole. The will of God is granted you. For you, decision-making mind, desire the only thing you ever had or ever were, which is the peace of God, right? The love of God. And, it's not necessary that we understand it, and it's not necessary that we fully, fully want it. We don't have to be healed. Our mind can still be split. We have a mixed allegiance. We can be ambivalent,
Hmm.
but a little willingness, we had a little willingness when we asked for the better way, and that's still there. It can't be taken back, you know. All we're asked to do is to want the peace of God, right?
Yeah.
So,
Somehow I flashed on like a Star Trek metaphor of the wish to want to accept Holy Spirit's vision and that light is, that's the little willingness. Is sort of like a tractor beam in Star Trek where, we lock onto that tractor beam and it pulls us home. you know
well, there is that wonderful section, I'm forgetting which, but where it talks about Jesus, together we hold the lamp that will
yeah.
dispel the darkness. And
Hmm. Hmm.
we don't have to see very far in front of us. We just need a little light to just keep, taking the next step,
The
right?
next step is plenty. Yeah,
Yep.
that's lit
Yeah.
for us. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then at some point it talks about the grand vistas that will be revealed. But yeah, we'll get to that. Yeah. And enough to just navigate through each little momentary grievance and be willing to question, a little at a time, each little annoyance, each
Yep.
little upset, and each little seeming disturbance to our peace of mind, and say, yeah, I suppose I could trust that higher
Yep.
power, that uh, inner kindness teacher, Holy Spirit, Jesus, whatever metaphor we like. That
And just remember the purpose, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
again, what is my purpose? What is my goal?
yeah.
The most important thing, even though, Ken always talked about we need to be normal and do the normal things that people do in the world and not try to act like we're beyond it or, further along than we really are. But to give the body, the identity of my personal self a forgiving purpose, the particulars of my life a healing purpose, a forgiving purpose, and make it the most important thing, that my real function and my real purpose is to use my life as a forgiveness classroom and a healing classroom. And that's all I really, the only really important thing that I'm doing here, right? And the rest will take care of itself. I mean, not in the sense that everything's going to work out in my dream,
Mm-hmm.
but that I will, I will continue to make more and more healing and forgiving choices. And the more present I can stay with this and the more consistent I can be with the practice and remembering my purpose, the more peace I'll experience and the kinder I'll be to myself and others. So,
And that
but the
train.
fact that we're going back and forth and having very hateful moments should not be something that we use to say that we're lost. It's
Right.
inevitable that will happen.
Yeah.
It's
The
okay.
the Enterprise might shake a little while the tractor beam is pulling us home, but
Well, we're going to be a lot more aware of that than we
yeah,
ever
yeah,
were.
exactly,
And
exactly.
that,
Yeah,
but that's part of the
that's
process,
part of the
right?
process.
There's
Yeah,
no way you can
exactly.
wake
Yeah,
up without increasing your awareness that
right,
this is
right.
not what you want.
Yeah.
So,
And I also like to remind myself that because I would have so much denied the discomfort, that when
right.
choose to listen to Holy Spirit, what I'm also choosing is to be aware of the discomfort, which is then
Yes.
part of the fuel or the motivation for listening more intently, to see the difference between the peace that the Holy Spirit offers and
Yep.
the pain and the agony really of believing that I pulled off this impossible crime of separation.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure there's more in this excellent section, but we covered some good ground here.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
It's the gist of it. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Susan. As always, you can find Susan's writings and musings and some excellent interviews with folks at the Foundation for A Course in Miracles and others on forgiveness.com. And I'll also post this recording on acionblog.com. So
Great.
thanks again,
Thank
Susan, and
you.
always a joy to talk with you, and truly helpful reminders to muse about. Yeah,
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 you too. Thank you, Bruce.
yeah. And enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Yes, and enjoy watching the clips
Okay, likewise.
if you're in the path. So
I'll
with
probably
glasses,
be
of
watching
course.
photos and things like that, but that's all
Yeah.
right. That's all
Yeah.
good. Yeah. Thanks again.